The doll head was at a color level 7, and I wanted to make the base color a shade darker, so I used the soft shades, the 06E, a lovely espresso tint that matches expensive brunette perfectly. The main benefit of using soft shades is that you can fully change the base color in just 20 minutes. If your client desires a lighter shade on their next visit, removing the soft shades from their hair is a simple process that can be easily accomplished. Plus, it fades gradually with washing. Why did I choose to put in that base tint first? This allows me to place my highlights over it while still getting the pigments below. When I use the shades or color pigments underneath, I don't always have to show my highlights. Additionally, I can work with a very low level of hydrogen peroxide. Before I apply the highlights, I first section the hair, because just like with cutting, it's faster when you have sections. On the back of the head, create diagonal sections down to the occipital bone, the highest point of the head, 2 sections down. This is a nice base to start with. I want to create the passe very roughly. Look, you always need to observe the client. With very fine hair, you can take whole sections. You can vary from thicker to finer highlights. Note that if you use very fine highlights, they will fade more into the hair. You see me using a board with teeth, and I do this intentionally because I want to tease my passe, and I don't know how it is for you all. Frequently, I encounter obstacles with teasing, and my technique of foiling does not prove to be effective. So, I use my toothed board and push the teasing against the head, making it easy to apply my bleach from there. I also apply this bleach slightly diagonally so that it darkens a bit towards the back of the head. The foil is close to the head and secure, as you can see. When I fold it in the shape of an envelope, it stays in place and doesn't move around, which is often the case when using teasing techniques. My next section is right on top, no hook in between. Next, I roughly apply it again, using Snow White at 3%. I always use Carabon for my clients. Normally, you mix Snow White 1:2, but when you add Carabon, the ratio becomes 1:1. On the toll head, I use 3%, but when applying this technique on a client, I would start with 1.9% because it only needs to lift a few shades. Look, I'm doing it again. I place my foil on the board and then push the teasing against the head with the teeth. Now apply it slightly diagonally again, so that the side towards the face is slightly higher than the side towards the back of the head, allowing it to blend nicely into the hair. Also, fold it nicely and always fold it double, so there's a clean side without bleach against the head. This helps avoid any chance of spots. On the other side, I do the same thing. I've already put the bottom one in, as you can see, since it's a repeat of the other side. Again, 2 or 3 times teasing, depending on how long it takes, and then push it away with the board. Another big advantage, I think, when working with a board is that you work very cleanly and precisely, allowing the bleach to penetrate deeper because you have a solid surface to achieve a bit more lightening. But as I said, with this technique, you use 1.9% for clients to create that lightening in the hair. But you all know, the hair of a doll hay that comes from an animal, I believe it's called a yak. And that is a bit harder to lighten. That's why I use 3%. The 2 sides at the back are in, and now I'm heading to the front. At the front, I decide to comb the section forward. Then after that, make sure to lift the section at the rear, right here on the highest point, in order to keep the darker part on the face. If I were to pull the section back, and then tease it out and apply my color, which adds more brightness to the face. However, I wanted to maintain some depth in the face. But that choice is always yours to make. You need to talk to your client about whether they want more brightness in the face or a deeper look. With expensive brunette, I think that depth is key. I find depth in the face more appealing, which is why I'm making this choice. I'm not teasing this section, I'm just teasing it out. These sections also come a bit closer to the roots when they are applied. Watch closely how I fold my foil. They are really like envelopes. I sometimes see during my training that the foil is only folded once and the sides are not closed. And yes, I sometimes get asked why my foil keeps sliding. I can guarantee that if you place your foil this way, it won't slide. Now the next section goes on top. You can see I'm working a bit roughly since this dollet has a fair amount of hair. If I work too finely, the end result will be very minimal, and I want it to be clearly visible. Since I'm using coarser sections, it's not a problem because I'm using that board I mentioned earlier. By using the board, I can press my bleach in deeper. Now I don't have to work diagonally with my bleach. It goes straight against the board, right against the teeth. But thanks to my teasing, it will blend beautifully into the hair. After I finish the back of the head and the contour line at the front, I will connect the two remaining sections. That's the top section and the area on the crown. I will now comb it out so you can see it well. First, I'll make my envelope nicely. From this point, observe the existence of a crown region as well as a region at the front. In that, I will place one foil. Do you see that? The front one and the back one. Then I take a horizontal section so I can connect those two areas together. And then you have a small triangle of natural hair, or rather dark hair, left over. I'm also letting some hair fall in between. Then you can also see the rough shaping again. But what I will do shortly with my bleach is also apply it diagonally so that it fades darker at the back of the head. I truly want that color to be present at the back of the head, especially when the wind blows through her hair, so that when she moves it beautifully, you don't really see highlights on top of her crown. Look, then I'll place it diagonally again, and then I know for sure when the toupee is cut out, because it blends even more beautifully as it fades darker at the back. When I am just about to take on my next pass in a moment, then I will allow it to be a pass, dark hair in between, allowing me to achieve even more of that blending effect. Look, I always provide you with inspiration, but then you can always personalize your technique for your own client. See, you always have the option to place an additional film in between. Or you can leave a little more room in between, or instead of measuring, you can cut entire slices. You need to think about all the times like, what do I want for the final result, and what hair do I have? Look, if I have a client with finer hair, as I mentioned earlier, then I will work a bit easier with whole slices. You'll be a bit more visible, but I won't take too coarse passes because I'll ultimately have more hair in my foil to bleach. Well, then this one comes again. With those passes of hair on top, a horizontal division, and then apply it diagonally again, allowing it to flow softly at the crown. I use soft shades to darken the hair very intentionally for the following reason. Look, soft shades are also easy to remove from the hair. When I use a permanent dye, it becomes much harder, and my highlights will stay very warm because of the underlying pigment. And with soft shades, you don't always have to pre-pigment because, for example, the 06E or the 05E already contain enough warmth on their own to achieve a beautiful color in the hair. So always keep in mind when you're coloring your client darker, which product you choose. Always think one step ahead. Okay, now I'm at the top of the head. That's also something where you can make the choice like, I want the top a bit darker for my client so that my color comes through underneath, or if you want to add a bit of lightening on top. I choose to have just a little bit of lightening on top because I want that in the pony section and to let it flow nicely. I look closely at how the hair falls, And I know this part won't fall over the crown, so I can do this pass without sectioning. I'm also choosing to give a bit of lightening closer to the roots on top. But keep in mind what your client desires. Give advice and talk it over together. But I'm choosing to give just a little lightening on the top layer on both sides. After doing this on both sides, I still have the pony section left. You should always watch how the hair falls when you place your highlights. For example, if I did that very close to the contour edge, then ultimately, when she styles her bangs, you won't see those highlights. So I really apply a bit of brightness in the top layer. A very fine section, also a bit more precise, and I place it in without sectioning. It's also very challenging, such a short length, but it can be applied right to the roots. When I train others, I often mention that our bleaching product, Snow White, can be used on wet hair. Welcome to try it out yourself. As you can see, I'm working on dry hair, and I do this for a reason. I want to apply it, and I find it difficult to apply on damp hair. It just doesn't go well. So I quickly dried the hair because I know I'm going to work with that application. The Kiss board is in our Kiss app. If you want to order Kiss, you can do so through our Kiss app, where you can also find the board and order it that way. I'm now choosing to place 2 small foils in the pony section, and as you saw me sweep away with my fingers, if you use a bit too much bleach, wipe it away. I'm working without gloves now. I know it's better with them, but wipe it off so you don't have too much bleach on the head. All of this together is quite a quick technique, as the soft shaves take 20 minutes, then I place 16 foils, which I also leave in for 20 minutes. Rinsed out, and then I have a very beautiful, expensive brunette final result.